everyone, and welcome to our stream today. I'm really glad everybody could join us. So today we're diving in. We're talking about Experian business credit reports. We're going to talk about the things you could do to improve your commercial credit reports. You're even going to see real Experian commercial credit reports here so you can get an idea of what yours are like. By the end of this, you're going to know exactly how Experian looks at your business credit reports, how they get data, what's on your credit reports, how your credit scores work, and most important, you're going to know exactly what you need to do to improve your Experian business credit reports so you can get all kinds of credit cards without a personal guarantee and credit check, and to make it easier to qualify for loans and credit lines as well. My name's Ty Crandall. I am actually the CEO here at Credit Suite. If we can help you along the way with building business credit, feel free to give us a ring. Our number is 877-600-2487. I'm also going to include a link at the bottom of my slides for you to be able to actually access credit monitoring at creditsuite.com/monitoring. So let's dive in. So Experian business credit. When you're talking about business credit, we're talking about credit that's in your business name. Okay, this is credit that is linked to your EIN, not your personal Social Security number. This is credit that is based on your business's ability to pay its bills, not you as an actual consumer. Now you got to be careful though. Experian and Equifax are both very big in the consumer credit space and the business credit space. So you need to know that Experian, you have two credit reports. You have your consumer credit report and you have your business credit report. And they even have a blended credit score that blends together both that we'll talk about today as well. And from Experian, when we talk about this blended score, they're saying by combining personal and commercial credit information on the report, Experian provides a complete picture of the creditworthiness of a small business. So this gives you some insight of how Experian is using both your consumer and your commercial data to determine your risk for lenders, credit issuers, suppliers, what you need to know about that, and what you need to know to make sure that lenders and credit issuers are only looking at your commercial reports if you want them to, and not your consumer credit report. So there's a lot of things on an Experian commercial credit report. Let's take a look at these. So first is identifying information, your business name, your business address, your business location. What you need to know here is that Experian creates a credit profile for you based on each unique location of your business. So what happens is if your business has a different address, then there's a good chance you could be populating two credit reports with Experian, something you want to prevent. This is why, as I'll talk about later, congruency is so important. If you ever change your address, you need to make sure Experian knows about that so they only calculate one credit report based on that information. So you're identifying information, all the information about you. How fast you pay your bills. Okay, this is called DBT, or days beyond terms. So when we talk about DBT is basically how you are actually paying your bills. Okay, are you paying them late? Are you paying them early? How late are you paying them? In the business world, you have to remember that you are considered late even if you are 1 day late, 1 day past the time that you're supposed to pay your bills. Unlike with consumer credit, we have 30 days to pay late. In the business world, you are way late if you're waiting 30 days to pay that bill. The history of your company financial performance. So if you give them tax returns, anything to do with your revenue, your income, number of employees, all those things on your report. Your credit score and risk factors and multiple credit scores. You can have as many as 5 credit scores on your Experian commercial credit report. We're going to look at some of these so you can see how these scores work. Banking, trading, collection history, any liens, judgments, public records, bankruptcies, UCC filings, even lawsuits. Now, we're not used to that. On the consumer credit reports, you don't see lawsuits on there. But in the commercial world, you absolutely do see that you are going to find not only liens, judgments, UCC filings, and bankruptcies, but you'll also see lawsuits as well. Now, UCC filings is simply a lender notifying Experian that you have an outstanding lien or an outstanding loan with them. Okay? So, that being said, you need to make sure that you know what this information is. Look at your commercial credit reports and see that it's reporting correctly. So where does Experian get their data? Well, credit obligation data comes from suppliers and lenders. It comes from background information from independent sources. It comes from actual trade payment experiences. So people that you're paying that do report to them that actually show on your credit report. Now you got to be careful here. 97% of trade vendors don't report the credit that you get to the business credit reporting agencies. But of the ones that do, and the ones that do report to Experian, they get information from there as well. Public records, legal filings, collections, company background, and comparative data to put a company's payment performance into context within its particular industry. Very, very common on commercial credit reports. This kind of industry scoring, where they score score you against other people in your same industry. And this makes sense. So for example, restaurants have a very high default rate. More restaurants go out of business than many other type of industries. So if they just look at your credit score as a restaurant compared to everybody, well then that might not help them. They want to see how you actually compare to others in your industry to give you a fair shake. So there's a lot of this comparative data as well. Now Experian has some credit scores you should know about. They're Intelliscore Plus. Okay, it predicts the business is likely of going seriously delinquent, which is over 91 days late, or having a major financial issue in the next 12 months. Now, very different here. Consumer credit looks at your risk of going 90 days late in the next 24 months. Business credit is the next 12 months. So the good thing is you can make changes to your business credit report and have it affect your credit score much easier on the positive side than consumer credit. Meaning, since they're only looking at your risk of going late the next 12 months, if you had problems last month or 2 months ago, when you get on the right track and you start putting a bunch of positive stuff to Experian commercial, that can really help you by making sure that you don't have any major financial issues in the next 12 months because they see you're back on track. Okay, so here's how their score calculates. 5 to 10% of the score is your payment history. Your current payment status of your accounts, the percentage of accounts delinquent basically accounts for 50 to 60% of your score. Credit utilization, 10 to 15% of your score. Company profile, the age of your business, the industry risk, and size of your business by number of employees is 5 to 10% of your overall score as well. So the main thing I look at here is that 5 to 10% of your score is payment history. 50-60% is current payment status. So that means 70% plus of your credit score really has to do with how you pay your bills. So Experian, like everybody else, your credit score is mainly comprised of how you pay your bills. The same with derogatory items here. Liens, judgments, collections accounts for 10 to 15% of your score. You add that to the 70%, you get 85%. So what I'm saying here is that payment history, 5 to 10%. Current payment status, 50 to 60% of your score. Derogatory items, 10 to 15%. If you add these up, payment history is 10%, 60% is current payment status, 15% is derogatory items, then what you have here is 85% of your entire score basically has to do with how you pay your bills. Okay, so that's why that becomes very important. So let's talk about the Experian Financial Stability Risk Score. Okay, this predicts the potential of a business going bankrupt or defaulting on its obligation. The score identifies the highest risk businesses by making use of payment information that's reported to them. Seriously delinquent means 61 to 91 days. High utilization of credit lines can adversely affect you. Public records, risky industries, all these type of things make you a greater risk of going out of business. And I'm going to take a look at Intelliscore and this score in just a minute. And what you're going to see is that it will automatically, even if they know your business exists, they'll automatically give you a failing score, especially if they don't like your actual industry. Now, as I mentioned, Experian does have a blended score as well. This is summary information on business and its owner. So for troubled businesses, blended scores drop an average of 30% over the 4 quarters leading up to a bad event. So Experian has a bunch of statistics that support the idea that by looking at your consumer and your commercial credit, that they can make better evaluations, better lending and credit issuing decisions. Here's why this is important. You have to give a credit issuer or whoever's pulling your credit permission to pull your consumer credit. You do not have to give anybody that's pulling your business credit reports permission to do so. That means if you go to apply at a bank or a credit card and you don't give them any permission to pull your consumer credit, they can't pull a blended score. All they can pull is your business credit score with Experian, your Intelliscore that's based on your business credit history. But if you go in and authorize a credit check to that credit issuer, well then they may pull a blended score from Experian. So again, I like to say this all the time. You have the control. That's why this education becomes so important. You need to, if you're going for credit without a personal guarantee and credit check, high limit credit cards, you need to not give them permission for a personal credit check. Nowadays, they will require your social for identification purposes, but you are the one that gives them permission to pull your commercial credit report. If you don't want them to, or your consumer, if you don't want them to look at your consumer credit report, you need to clearly not give them the authorization to do so. You need to even tell them, I'm going to give you my social to identify who I am, but not to pull my consumer credit. And the minute you do that, they can't pull a blended score. So this becomes very important for you if you have any consumer credit issues. So let's dive in. I want to kind of give you an idea and look from theory to what commercial credit reports look like. Now, the nice thing is here is that business credit reports are public information. So I can show you this information without having anybody's permission to do so, because you, me, anybody that wants to can pull commercial credit reports on any kind of company that's out there. So I want to show you some examples of what this looks like. You can see that the primary address information, company's information is here that we talked about. We can see here that we've got this actual credit score. This is their Intelliscore. It ranges from 0 to 100. With 100 being the highest score you can get, and it's based on mostly how you pay your bills, as we talked about. Here's that financial stability risk score. Remember, that score has to do with how financially stable you are. It looks at things like industry, employees, etc., etc., etc. And then here's just some summary information: fraud alerts, derogatory items, days beyond terms. Okay, we can see some business facts, when it was started, owner information, etc. right here. We can then also see here's that financial stability score. We can see that, or we can actually see, this is the Intelliscore. We can see it's low risk, which means a business is paying its bills on time. We could even see trending data there. And then here's that financial stability risk score. This depicts the risk of going bankrupt. Now, I can tell you that I see industry as a major indicator here of risk. So we can see here the number of accounts you have, the risk associated with your industry. And almost all times I see this score low, it's because they don't like the industry. Risk associated with the business type and employee number as well. And then we can see trade data down here as well. We can see the actual amount. They only have one account on their business credit report. This is why we build business credit. There's only one account. That one account is paid as agreed, and that gave them an excellent score, okay, of 96. Now, I'm going to show you a lot of things here, because there's a lot of things that I think that you really need to see. I think that are very important. So one of the things here that you're going to see is that this person went from a very low score to a very high score in a very short period of time. A 28 score always indicates that they don't have any credit reporting. So this person had a bad score, a failing score of 28. They added one account to their business credit reports that you can see here, a packaging, probably from Uline. That took them from a bad score all the way up to a good score. You can see the transition here, and you can see that their score is very good now here. So it only takes one account to get a good score, but if you don't have one account, in this case, you would have had a very bad score. Additional business facts, if there's anybody else in your company family tree, and inquiries are all right down here. So let's take a look at another credit report. Now here's one that I can always tell just by looking at this information and nothing else, that somebody has a credit report established but has no credit reporting. I've said multiple times that with Experian and Equifax, they will populate a credit report for you and give you a failing score even when you have no credit. I can always tell what that looks like because of two things. If I see a credit report with a 28 out of 100 score, a failing score, and a credit limit recommendation of only $1,000, I know without a doubt that this person doesn't have any credit. Here, I'll show you. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom of the report. We can see that there's nothing here unlike the last report. We can see that there are no trade lines here to look at. Everything are zeros. This person has no credit at all, and they're given a failing score. And the reason for that is because they basically don't like the industry of the company, and they don't have any credit data, so they're giving them a failing score. We can also see the financial stability risk score. Your risk of going bankrupt is extremely high because you have no positive credit to offset that. So this is what your credit score report looks like when you have absolutely no credit reporting whatsoever. Here's one middle of the road. We can start to see this person has credit. We know they have credit reporting because the credit limit recommendation is higher. Okay, and that becomes very, very, very important. So I show examples when I stand on large stages speaking in front of groups, and I show this as an example. The more accounts you have reporting to the business credit reporting agencies, the higher this recommendation of credit will get. So if you want to know where credit card companies decide how much credit you should be given, when you want to know how much money a bank is going to determine how much money you should be lent, think of it like this. They're pulling a commercial credit report from Experian, and Experian's telling them exactly how much money you should be given. So of course they're going to look at this. As a matter of fact, if we look at the credit report, it's the second thing on the credit report. First, they're telling the lender and credit issuer the score. Second, they're telling them how much they recommend you be given in credit. So it's very important that you build business credit, because the more accounts you gain, the higher this will be. Here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Remember, this person had no credit and they had a $1,000 credit limit recommendation. Remember, the other person with the 96 score had that one account that I showed you, that packaging account. Look at their credit limit recommendation. It's getting higher because they have credit now reporting. Now check this out. Without even looking at this and scrolling down, can you tell me, does this person have more than one account reporting to the business credit reports? Yeah, they do. We can tell because the credit limit recommendation is up. Here, I'll show you. If we scroll down, we see that there's definitely probably, yep, there we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 accounts reporting. So we can start to see that the more accounts you're adding, the higher that recommendation of credit is from the actual credit reporting agencies. And again, similar data here, right? Company information. Here's that Intelliscore based on their payment history. Here's that score that breaks down their Intelliscore. Here's the Intelliscore trend. Here's that score that shows your risk of going bankrupt. And then we get into an account, a credit report, which is what you want to see, a bunch of accounts reporting to them. The other thing I want to point out is that notice there is no limit on this credit report. Well, two things I want to show you. First of all, business category. Notice that commercial credit reports do not say the name of the credit issuer. Office supplies is the category. You don't see Office Depot. You don't see Staples here. You just see office supplies. So what you're seeing here is that there is no company name. There's a category. So when you're building business credit with Experian in Equifax and Dun & Bradstreet, you need to make sure you keep track of the sources that are reporting on your credit report. You need to know you got a Staples credit card and that Staples is showing as office supplies. It's the only way you would link this to the actual retailer. We have the date last reported here. So that's why using the credit does matter, because the date last reported is here. We have the last sale, the last time you used the credit report. Okay, we have the payment terms, net 30, revolving credit, etc. We have the recent credit you've used. We have the balance, the current balance, and how many days beyond terms you are in comments. So notice that commercial credit reports for your view have no limits on them. Now, the credit issuer reports that they pull do show limits, but the limits that you will pull will not show. The credit reports you pull will not show limits. Instead, it shows the recent amount of credit you've used. So this becomes very important, because if you want to get higher limits on business credit reports, you need to be using the credit you get. And so many people make this mistake. They build business credit just to build business credit. By that I mean they go get a Uline account, they go get a Quill account just to get the trade line reporting on their business credit report. Then they do this. They spend very little money. They spend less than $100, and it shows like this. Then they're out trying to get $5,000, $10,000 limit accounts from Amazon, and they don't understand why Amazon won't approve them for $5,000 or $10,000. If you want a $10,000 Amazon account, then you need to show that you're using the credit you're being given. If you're not using the credit you're being given, then you're not going to get approved for higher limit accounts. So this credit report shows you that problem. So a lot of things you could see here that we haven't looked at necessarily on other reports. So let's look at this score. This person's not even paying their bills on time. 42 score. And they're still being recommended for $21,000 in credit. So based on what you've learned so far, you should already know why this is happening. If I scroll down, does this person have no accounts, one account, or quite a few accounts on their business credit report? Quite a few accounts, right? So the answer is that the more accounts you have, the higher I've always seen this credit limit recommendation goes. And this is a perfect example. You may think, well, no. I'm getting recommended for a lot of credit because I pay my bills on time. This person doesn't. A 42 out of 100 score, that's a failing score. The credit limit recommendation is higher because we're assuming they have a lot of accounts on their business credit reports. And as we scroll down, then this is what we see. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we can see they have 10 accounts on their business credit reports. I'm telling you, this is how business credit works that credit bureaus don't want you to know. The more accounts you put on your business credit reports, the higher that recommendation of credit will be. The more you pay those accounts on time, the higher your scores will be. And again, here's that recent credit they're using. Here's their balances. We have some more company information here, corporate linkage to other names and addresses. Remember, I told you it's important you have the same address. They're saying here, we don't know what's going on. We see multiple addresses for this company. You can see inquiries down here, but you can't see the companies that did the inquiries. You could just see the type of accounts they were. So here's those quarterly payment trends. Monthly payment trends, we haven't seen this data before. We can see that DBT, that days beyond term. We can see how they're tracking that. Okay, and then again, we get into a lot of information we've already seen. The quarterly trends, their financial stability risk score, their Intelliscore. Now remember, what's the difference between these? Remember, Intelliscore has to do with how you pay your bills. That's mostly guided based on your payment history. And the financial stability risk score has to do with your risk of going bankrupt, which has to do with your industry, the number of employees, the number of accounts you have, etc. If we come here to look at why that Intelliscore may be low, then what we find, if we look, is that more than likely they've had some payments that are not paid as agreed. And we can see here that they had a bank credit card with a very high limit that actually was a charge-off. And we can see here that they were 20% of the time they paid late. So these are some good examples here. If somebody pays as agreed, you see all this current 100%. If somebody's paying late, you see this. They're paying current 80% of the time, and 20% of the time, they're 1 to 30 days late, as you can see here on this commercial credit report. And I'm going to take a look at one more 5 for reports today. Let's look at this. Here we go. What do you think? What's your guess? Does this person have more than 5 accounts on their credit report or fewer? Probably more, right? So far, let's do a count here. We looked at this credit report. We saw the recommendation of credit was for $15,000. The credit bureaus are saying, well, we would give this person $21,000 in credit. And we counted how many accounts on their business credit report. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We would assume with $65,000, they're going to have definitely some good amount of accounts on their credit reports. Let's look at it and see. Here we go. There's 4, 5, 6 credit reports or accounts on the credit report right there. So we can see they definitely, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 accounts on the credit reports right here. And we also see another reason the limits are higher on those accounts. Look at the recent amount of credit they're using. $26,900, $45,300, $100,000. So again, if you want your recommendation of credit to be higher, you need to use the accounts you get. You need to add more accounts to the business credit reports. If you want your scores to be higher, then you need to pay your credit as agreed. If you don't, your scores will be lower. Okay, so a lot of information by looking at those commercial credit reports gives you an idea of how they work. Now, keep in mind, beyond this, your fundability really matters. And I'm going to kind of go through this fairly quickly because I do a lot of training on fundability. I just did some training last week, so I don't want to take a bunch of your time on something I cover quite a bit. But fundability is your ability to get funding from the lenders and credit issuers. It's very important with Experian because your Experian commercial credit reports calculate into your fundability. One of the fundability factors is your industry. Remember, they're going to look at your application and scrutinize it really deeply. I don't know if that's a word, if I had to say scrutinize it deeply or not, but they're really going to scrutinize it if you don't have a business credit report established. If it is established, they'll look at your business credit report more than they're actually looking at your application. But remember, your industry really matters, okay? The industry you're in. How many of these commercial credit reports did we just look at here where they came in and specifically said, we don't like the industry? The reason we're giving a low score is because we don't like the industry. That's why choosing the right industry is so important, and I'll talk about that in a minute, because if you don't, you can see that it really affects your fundability, your ability to get money from the actual reporting agencies. So it comes down to your business name. Keep your name out of a high-risk industry name. I use the same example all the time. Bail bonds is a high-risk industry. Don't name your company Chico's Bail Bonds. Name it Chico's. If you don't do this, the name itself can throw up a red flag. And again, you just saw the outcome. What happens is they then start scoring you lower because they don't like your industry. So to avoid that, you need to choose a business name that doesn't indicate that you're in a high-risk industry. Your business address needs to be a real physical business address. You need to stay away from P.O. boxes. Stay away from UPS addresses. You can use home addresses, but it's not preferred. Some sources like Walmart will never approve you for the address. And you need to make sure that if you change your address, you change it with the reporting agencies. It becomes very, very, very important. And we already looked at some examples of why that's important. Let me see if this commercial credit report was one of those examples. We start to see multiple different addresses here that are established with different addresses. You can see this is the same company name, but different addresses. Experian is saying we are confused. There's a possibility that this commercial credit report may be linked to another one that we house. Here's how you know that. There's a business identification number with Experian, a BIN number, okay? Here's a BIN number. Here's a BIN number. Okay, we can also see here that the BIN number's right here as well. So Experian has this company with this BIN number. Then they're also coming down here and they're saying there's two other companies that also have these BIN numbers. Now, they're both in Missouri, so more than likely these are all the exact same company. But this company changed their address. They didn't notify Experian. They didn't change all the places online that their address should be changed. So what Experian did was Experian created two more credit profiles. So this company currently has 3 credit profiles with Experian, all because they changed their address, and they didn't change their address everywhere online and change it with Experian. So Experian started populating different credit reports for them. Now this could be a real problem because, again, they probably have well more than the accounts they have showing here on the business credit reports. But their score is very low because, again, they are not looking at the entire history here. They are realizing that they think that there are multiple credit reports. Now, they are coming and going, hey, look, there's similarities here. Like, they're both in Missouri. They have the exact same company name, but they're different addresses, so we've created different BIN numbers. So that address becomes very important, that you set that up and that you make sure you notify Experian, Equifax, Dun & Bradstreet if that's going to change. And you need to make sure your congruency is important online. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, and if you don't have a physical business address, you could use virtual addresses like places like Regis, DaVinci, or Liens. If you go to creditsuite.com/virtual, you will find our virtual address source, which is Alliance that we recommend. And these are addresses you could basically rent the address. You rent the mailbox there, but unlike UPS, you're given a unique address that makes it look like a real building, not a P.O. box. You need to have your business phone number set up. You need to have it listed with 411. If you are asked for a fax number on an application, you need to have a fax number. Okay, all those things become important for you to actually have a fundable business. You need to set up a business bank account. You need to know that you have a credit score that just looks at how you manage your bank account. It's called check systems. So manage your bank account responsibly. Make sure you set one up for your business. That separates your personal and business expenses. It opens up all kinds of funding opportunities, right? I'm the funding guy. My job is to help you understand what's needed to get you the most amount of money for your business. Setting up a business bank account is very important. There's all kinds of funding that's available based on just you having a business bank account. So you need to make sure that you get that set up. You have to have your business entity set up. You need to get an EIN. This commercial credit report with Experian is linked to your EIN. You can't have a commercial credit report with Experian if you don't have an EIN. So you need to have an EIN set up to even have any chance of having a business credit report set up. You've got to have this done. You've got to have it set up before you actually can even have a business credit report populated. So you've got to have that done as well. Here, we talked about this. How do they like your industry? How do they not like your industry? How do they know what industry that you are in? You're telling them. You're telling them, look at this. If we look at this right up, where are you? Let me see some other commercial credit reports. Let me look at some examples. Here we go. SIC code, NAICS code. So we can see here that this company has an SIC code of dance studios and an NAICS code of fine art schools, which, by the way, based on the fact that they don't like this company's industry, apparently Experian doesn't like fine art schools for some reason. Just pointing that out. But what I'm telling you is that this is exactly how their calculations work. They're choosing the SIC or NAICS code for your industry, and then they are putting you in a high-risk sector based on that code. So you need to choose your NAICS code. The SIC code is like an antiquated system. The NAICS code is the new system that the government has. You need to go through and figure out which NAICS code best fits your industry and choose that. And then you need to make sure that's the one that Experian, Equifax, and Dun & Bradstreet has. And on every application you have for credit, you need to choose that industry. Okay, so let's go back to this example. If this company is applying, and this is the NAICS code that they want to have, the one right here, the Fine Art Schools 611, 610, then whenever I'm ever asked for my industry on a business application, that's what I would enter. I would enter my industry as I'm a fine arts school. My industry code is 611610, my NAICS code. Yeah, you volunteer the information. So if I come to apply for a bank application, they never ask me for my NAICS code. They expect that I don't know it. But I want to choose what it is, and if this is what I've chosen as fine arts schools, you better believe when they ask for my industry, I put fine arts schools NAICS code 611610. You know why? There's no way the underwriter can screw that up. All the underwriter has to do in their system is plug in the NAICS code that I've given them, and it's 100% correct. But if you don't tell them this, they're going to guess the closest thing they think it may be, and then typically they're going to get the NAICS code wrong. Then you're going to have multiple NAICS codes on your credit report, which I see all the time. So you figure out which NAICS code works best. You use that on all IRS applications or on your tax returns and on all applications for credit and for financing as well. Now, if you want to get set up with the reporting agencies, you can go to creditsuite.com/DUNS. Or you can go to DNB's link, dnb.com/DUNS/number to get your DUNS number with Dun & Bradstreet. That's the very first step with getting set up with Dun & Bradstreet. You can also go to creditsuite.com/reports to get set up with Dun & Bradstreet, Equifax, and Experian, and to do a check at absolutely no cost with each of the reporting agencies to see if they know you exist now. If you go to this and you type in your business name and only the state you're in, they will come back and they will tell you either that you have, here's your exact business name and address, which means they know you exist. They're going to say we have no record, or they're going to say your name and address and that you have trade lines. It's one of those three outcomes. If you do not have credit, if it only shows as your name and address, and it does not show that you have any credit, you have a problem. Let me show you what you have. This is what you have. If it shows up and shows your name is there and we have your address, but there's no trade lines, then what's going to happen is this. They're going to come in and give you a failing score. It is going to look almost identical to this. 28 Intelliscore, 6 financial stability score, $1,000 recommendation of credit, and absolutely no trade lines as you see on this credit report. This is a bare bones credit report where the only thing they know about this company is the SIC code. Okay, and that's why they're giving them that failing report and score. So again, you can do that free search at creditsuite.com/reports to show how you are set up. Now you've got to get that BIN number. We talked about this BIN number with Experian. What it is, it's their identifying number. They have something called BizSource that they use as their algorithm to assign the BIN number. It's linked to every single company with a unique address. I just showed you multiple examples of companies with multiple addresses getting multiple BIN numbers assigned. Your name and your business name and address is extremely important when it comes to commercial credit. Let me give you an example. I'm getting a little off topic, but let me give you an example in the consumer world. In the consumer world, your credit profile is linked to you by name, address, and social security number. That means if you have somebody with a similar name and a similar address and a similar social, then oftentimes their information can end up on your credit report. I'm telling you, the majority of identity theft is not identity theft at all. What happens is the credit reporting agencies put information on your credit report they think belongs to you when it doesn't. This is a false belief. People think that is the case, but it's not. Let me explain. You do not have a credit report with TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian on the consumer side. You don't. What happens is there's all this data floating around in their systems. And when somebody goes in and says, I want information on you, and they give them your name, your address, and your social, then all this data that they think belongs to you comes together in one report, and that one report is what they serve up. The problem is if somebody has a similar name, a similar address, a similar social, then that information can get put on your credit report. You think it's identity theft, but really the bureaus put stuff on there that was never supposed to happen. How does this commonly happen? Think about it. Dad and son. Let's say your son is the same name but junior. Well, a lot of people don't realize that social security numbers are assigned based on where you live. So my social security number starts with a 3 because I am from Indiana. And if you have a 3 social security number, you're probably from around about Indiana as well. Okay, if you have a 1 social security number or a 0, you're probably up in the Eastern Peninsula in Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York area. It starts up there and it goes all the way down. Okay, so when you get to people with 9 or 8 in the top of their social security number, they're all the way on the West Coast. So if I have somebody where my son has the same name as me, but he's junior, he lives in the same town, his name is similar and his social similar, all of a sudden his stuff gets put on my credit report. It happens all the time. Now, fast forward to why I'm telling you this. In the business world, it's all about your business name and your business address. So companies with similar names and similar addresses can either show up on your credit report, or if your company name has multiple addresses, you could be creating multiple credit reports and BIN numbers as I just showed you. So that's how that whole system works. Some things I don't talk about very much. Your personal financials, or I should say your business financials, actually do matter. They will show on your business credit report your revenue, your profits. Let me show if I can show you some of that as well. Let me see if I can pull up a credit report that has that information on here and see if I can find one of those. Sometimes that is on here, sometimes I have that, and sometimes we don't. We can see where they put the, here we go. On this one, you can see what happens. They have the number of employees and they have the total sales for the company on here as well. When they have that financial data, that will populate on your credit report as you see there. You also need to make sure that your personal credit is important as well with Experian, because don't forget Experian has that blended score. I showed you how to get around that. But don't forget, Experian does have that blended score. So when it comes to getting money for your business, personal credit really does matter. You want to get the most favorable funding for your business, you got to pay your bills on time. Don't forget, almost 85% of your total score is based on that one thing, paying your bill on time. And make sure everything is consistent. Your name, your address, your phone number. This is why multiple credit profiles are created, because you put your name and address on an application for credit, then you change your address, and then the next application for credit you use the new address, and you never change the addresses with the reporting agencies, and they create multiple credit profiles. So make sure your address and your phone number and your business name is all the same everywhere. Secretary of State records, IRS records, bank statements, Yelp, Bing, Yahoo, Facebook page, website, everywhere. You got to make sure that that information is congruent, or it creates multiple credit reports, as I've already shown you examples of. So a lot of things you can do here to improve your credit. Make sure you avoid any liens, and make sure you avoid bankruptcies, judgments, lawsuits, etc. If you get a lien, they're probably going to put a UCC filing on your credit report. Some lenders don't. It's a good question to ask. A UCC filing is not bad. It just tells them that you have an outstanding loan, but it can be bad. In our case, we had a loan we paid off. The lender went out of business. We went to get another loan. They said, we need proof this one's paid off. We said, what do you want to do? The lender's out of business. Like, what are we supposed to do here? It was a nightmare that slowed down our loan approval by almost 2 months because we couldn't prove that we didn't have that lien anymore. That's exactly why, on our mistake, because we didn't clean that up off our business credit reports, and we should have. So I'm telling you that so you can learn from my example that you need to keep up with this. You need to make sure that information is accurate. You need to pay those bills on time. You will need to try to pay your accounts in full every month. If you can do so, it becomes very important. So remember, Experian will look at both personal and business if you give them the ability to. Okay, don't forget that paying your bills on time becomes very important. Monitoring your business credit reports becomes very important. Okay, make sure that you get credit with the reporting agencies. If you don't, they're going to populate that failing credit report and score for you. You got to separate that consumer and business bank accounts, and separate your consumer and your business debts, obligations, etc. as well. And don't forget, we talked a lot about fundability. Fundability is all about improving the things that make you more lendable and fundable, and that's what Experian is all about. Your Experian commercial credit reports used by lenders and credit issuers and suppliers to determine how much money you should be given, the rates and terms you should you get approved or not. That's why Experian ties so much into fundability. And don't forget, if we can help you along the way, you can get to us at creditsuite.com. Also, don't forget, if you go to creditsuite.com, top right of our page, you can access our social media links, including our Facebook, where we go live every week, our YouTube, where we go live every week, our podcast, where we release 2 episodes every single week, and our Instagram and our Twitter, where we've got daily tips as well to improve your business credit, get financing for your business, and also improve your fundability. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Now you get a good idea of exactly what you need to do to improve your Experian credit report, and by doing so, improving your fundability as well. If we can help you along the way, visit us online at creditsuite.com. Thanks, everybody. Have a great